Anne Frank's legacy endures as one of the most profound and poignant narratives to emerge from the horrors of World War II. Her diary, written while in hiding from the Nazi regime, has become an enduring symbol of resilience, hope, and the indomitable spirit of youth in the face of unimaginable suffering. Few first-hand accounts of the Holocaust have resonated with such global impact as Anne's personal reflections, which provide an intimate glimpse into the life of a young girl grappling with fear, isolation, and the everyday struggles of adolescence amidst one of the darkest chapters in human history. The importance of Anne Frank's diary cannot be overstated. Published posthumously as The Diary of a Young Girl, her writings have transcended their immediate historical context to serve as a universal testament to the consequences of hatred and intolerance. More than a mere chronicle of her experiences, the diary offers readers a deeply personal perspective on the realities of war, oppression, and the human condition. Through her words, Anne has given voice to the millions who perished in the Holocaust, ensuring that their suffering is neither forgotten nor diminished by time. Anne's diary would not exist without the historical backdrop against which it was written. The Second World War was a conflict that redefined the world, leaving an indelible mark on history. At the heart of this war was the Holocaust, the systematic genocide orchestrated by Adolf Hitler's Nazi regime that led to the deaths of 6 million Jews, including Anne and her family. Europe in the 1930s and 1940s was a landscape of upheaval, where authoritarian ideologies, racial persecution, and war combined to create a period of unparalleled human tragedy. The Nazi occupation of the Netherlands in 1940 sealed the fate of Anne Frank and her family, as well as thousands of other Jews who had sought refuge in the country. Despite initial attempts at maintaining a semblance of normal life, the increasing restrictions placed upon Jewish citizens, from curfews to forced labor, made it evident that survival required drastic measures. The Frank family, along with others, went into hiding in July 1942, seeking shelter in a concealed annex behind Otto Frank's business in Amsterdam. It was within these confined walls that Anne documented her experiences, her hopes, and her fears, ultimately creating a historical artifact that continues to educate and inspire generations worldwide. Anne Frank was born on June 12, 1929 in Frankfurt, Germany, into a well-to-do Jewish family. She was the second daughter of Otto and Edith Frank, joining her older sister Margot. The Franks were a cultured, liberal family who valued education and intellectual curiosity. Otto Frank, a decorated veteran of World War I, was a businessman with strong ties to both Germany and the Netherlands. His wife Edith came from a devout Jewish family and was known for her deep religious faith and dedication to her children. And, a lively and inquisitive child, exhibited an early flair for storytelling and writing, traits that would later define her legacy. During the early years of Anne's life, Germany was undergoing a period of severe economic and political instability. The 1920s saw the rise of nationalist sentiments, fueled by the economic devastation wrought by World War I and the harsh terms of the Treaty of Versailles. These conditions paved the way for the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party, who exploited widespread discontent to gain political control. When Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany in 1933, the nation swiftly transformed into a totalitarian state, and the persecution of Jews became an official policy. Discriminatory laws stripped Jews of their rights, businesses were boycotted, and violent anti-Semitic propaganda became rampant. The Frank family, like many other German Jews, faced an increasingly hostile environment that made remaining in Germany untenable. Recognizing the growing danger, Otto Frank made the difficult decision to move his family to the Netherlands in 1933. Amsterdam, known for its relative tolerance and economic opportunities, seemed like a safe haven. Otto established a business there, running a company that produced pectin, an ingredient used in making jam. The Franks adapted quickly to their new life, and for a time, it seemed that they had escaped the worst of the Nazi threat. Anne and Margot enrolled in school, where they made friends and excelled academically. And, in particular, developed a strong personality. She was talkative, adventurous, and had a natural curiosity about the world. However, their sense of security was short-lived. In May 1940, the German army invaded the Netherlands, bringing Nazi rule to their doorstep. The occupation rapidly altered life for Jewish families, as restrictions were imposed with alarming speed. Jewish-owned businesses were forced to close or were seized by the authorities, Jewish children were barred from attending public schools, and curfews severely limited their movements. By 1941, deportations to concentration camps had begun, and the Frank family understood that they were living on borrowed time. The situation became increasingly dire when Margot Frank received a call-up notice in July 1942, summoning her for deportation to a Nazi labor camp. This was the moment that Otto and Edith Frank had dreaded, and they knew that immediate action was necessary to save their family. The plan to go into hiding had been in preparation for some time, but Margot's summons expedited their departure. On July 6, 1942, the Franks moved into the concealed annex of Otto Frank's office building, located at Prinsengracht 263. They were later joined by the Van Pels family and Fritz Pfeffer, a dentist and acquaintance of the Franks. This marked the beginning of Anne Frank's life in hiding, a period that would be meticulously recorded in her diary. Within the cramped confines of the annex, Anne found solace in writing, chronicling her thoughts, emotions and experiences. Though her world had shrunk to a few rooms and she lived under constant fear of discovery, Anne's words soared beyond those walls, leaving behind a testament that continues to illuminate the past and shape the present. One of the most striking aspects of Anne's diary is its exploration of universal themes: fear, isolation, identity, love, and hope. She often wrote about the loneliness that came with confinement and the fear of being discovered. The constant tension within the annex and the threat of deportation weighed heavily on her mind. She also struggled with questions about her identity as a Jewish girl in a world that sought to erase her people. Yet, amid the darkness, Anne never lost her sense of hope. She believed in the goodness of humanity, even as she witnessed the horrors of war from a distance. Her relationship with Peter Van Pels was a significant part of her diary. Initially indifferent to him, and grew closer to Peter over time. Their friendship blossomed into a quiet romance, offering both of them a much-needed distraction from the harsh reality of their lives. And found comfort in Peter's presence, and their conversations provided an emotional outlet. However, she also questioned whether her feelings for him were genuine or merely a result of their forced proximity. Her reflections on love and relationships showcased her emotional maturity and depth of thought. As time passed, Anne's diary entries became more philosophical. She questioned the meaning of suffering, the role of women in society, and her own place in the world. She longed to be free, to experience life outside the confines of the annex, and to pursue her dream of becoming a writer. She envisioned a future where she could use her words to make a difference, unaware that her diary would achieve that dream in a way she could never have imagined. Anne's diary remains one of the most powerful testimonies of the Holocaust. It offers an unfiltered, deeply personal perspective on life during one of history's darkest periods. Through her words, she gave voice to millions who were silenced. Today, her diary continues to inspire readers around the world, reminding them of the resilience of the human spirit and the importance of remembering the past. On the morning of August 4, 1944, Anne Frank's worst fears materialized when the secret annex was discovered. The betrayal remains shrouded in mystery, with various theories suggesting different informants, but the result was devastating. The Gestapo, led by SS-Oberscharführer Karl Silberbauer, raided the hiding place and arrested the Frank family, the Van Pels and Fritz Pfeffer. Years of careful secrecy crumbled in an instant as armed officers stormed into the annex, demanding answers and searching for valuables. The captives were taken to the Gestapo headquarters in Amsterdam, where they were interrogated. Otto Frank later recalled the sheer terror of the moment, particularly for Anne and Margot, who had never before faced such brutality. The questions were rapid and unforgiving, but there was little they could do. Hiding was itself a crime punishable by death. After being processed, the group was transferred to Westerbork, a transit camp in the northeastern Netherlands. Westerbork was not yet a death camp, but conditions were dire. Thousands of prisoners, mostly Jews, were crammed into overcrowded barracks, with inadequate sanitation and food rations barely enough to sustain life. And, accustomed to the security of the annex, was suddenly thrust into a world of deprivation, forced labor, and endless uncertainty. The only certainty was the looming specter of transport to the east, where few ever returned. On September 3, 1944, Anne, Margot, and the rest of the annex members were loaded onto a cattle train bound for Auschwitz, the final journey for many. Arrival at Auschwitz was a nightmare beyond anything Anne had imagined. The transport took 3 days, during which prisoners were given little food or water, forced to endure the stench of overcrowded wagons where the sick and dying lay beside the living. When the train finally screeched to a halt at Auschwitz-Birkenau, Nazi officers immediately began the selection process. Men and women were separated upon arrival. Otto Frank was torn away from his wife and daughters, sent to the men's barracks, while Anne, Margot and Edith remained together. Those deemed too weak to work were sent to the gas chambers within hours. Miraculously, Anne and her family were spared for the moment. Forced labor at Auschwitz was brutal. Prisoners worked long hours in freezing temperatures, barely surviving on thin soup and scraps of bread. Disease ran rampant, and punishments for the slightest infraction were deadly. And Margot grew weaker by the day, struggling to hold on to hope in an environment designed to crush it. In late October 1944, Anne and Margot were transported to Bergen-Belsen, a camp in northern Germany. Conditions there were even worse. Food was scarcer and disease, especially typhus, spread unchecked. By February 1945, Margot, weak and feverish, succumbed to illness. And, devastated, followed her sister in death a few days later. Of all those who had lived in the annex, only Otto Frank survived the war. He returned to Amsterdam, where he later discovered Anne's diary, a testament to her resilience, her dreams, and the life that was stolen from her. Anne Frank's story is one of both tragedy and enduring legacy. Though her life was cut short, her words continue to inspire, ensuring that the world never forgets the horrors of the Holocaust and the power of hope in the darkest times. By early 1945, conditions in the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp had deteriorated to inhumane levels. Starvation, disease, and extreme cold claimed thousands of lives daily, and Anne and Margot Frank were among the victims. In the overcrowded, unsanitary barracks, the two sisters suffered from severe malnutrition and were weakened by the relentless conditions of the camp. A typhus epidemic swept through Bergen-Belsen during the bitter winter months, and Margot, already frail, succumbed first. Witnesses recalled that she fell from her bunk in a weakened state and died shortly afterward. And, devastated by the loss of her sister and suffering from the same disease, passed away a few days later. The exact date of their deaths remains unknown, but it is believed they perished in February or March 1945, just weeks before the camp was liberated by British forces on April 15, 1945. Their deaths, like those of countless other Holocaust victims, were marked only by the silent suffering of those who perished alongside them. The tragedy of Anne's death at such a young age, when she still harbored dreams of a future, remains one of the most haunting aspects of her story. Otto Frank, Anne's father, was the only member of the Frank family to survive the Holocaust. After the liberation of Auschwitz by Soviet troops on January 27, 1945, Otto began a long and painful journey back to Amsterdam. Weak from months of malnutrition and grief-stricken by the loss of his family, he arrived home in June 1945, hoping against hope that his wife and daughters had survived. However, as he reconnected with surviving friends and fellow prisoners, he learned the devastating truth. Edith Frank had died in Auschwitz, and Anne and Margot had perished in Bergen-Belsen. Amidst the sorrow of his return, Otto received an unexpected gift, Anne's diary. Miep Gies, one of the helpers who had risked her life to protect the Frank family in hiding, had discovered the scattered pages of Anne's writings in the secret annex after the Gestapo raid. Hoping one day to return them to Anne, she had kept them safe. Now, with Anne gone, she handed them over to Otto, believing that he should be the one to decide what to do with them. Reading Anne's words was an overwhelming experience for Otto. Through her diary, he reconnected with the daughter he had lost. He saw not just the teenager he had known, but an insightful, reflective young writer who had poured her heart into her pages. She had documented not only the events of their time in hiding but also her inner thoughts, fears, and hopes for the future. Deeply moved by Anne's writings and encouraged by friends, Otto decided to honor his daughter's wish of becoming a published writer. He compiled and edited the diary, omitting some personal passages but preserving the essence of Anne's words. After facing initial rejections from publishers, the Diary of a Young Girl was finally published in 1947 under the title Het Achterhuis, The Secret Annex. The response was immediate and powerful. Readers around the world were deeply touched by Anne's eloquence, her optimism in the face of despair, and her reflections on human nature. As the diary was translated into multiple languages, its impact grew exponentially. Schools began incorporating Anne's story into their curricula, and it became one of the most widely read accounts of the Holocaust. Over the decades, the diary has sold millions of copies and has been adapted into plays, films, and educational programs, cementing Anne Frank's legacy as a symbol of resilience and hope. Anne Frank's diary remains one of the most influential literary works of the 20th century. It has shaped the way the world understands the Holocaust, offering a personal human perspective on the atrocities committed during the war. More than just a historical document, it is a testament to the enduring power of the written word and the ability of a young girl's voice to transcend time and geography. The diary is widely used in educational curricula around the world to teach students about the Holocaust, human rights, and the dangers of discrimination. It has played a significant role in Holocaust remembrance efforts, ensuring that the voices of those who perished are never forgotten. In 1960, the building that housed the secret annex was turned into a museum, the Anne Frank House. Today it is one of the most visited museums in the Netherlands, attracting millions of visitors each year. Walking through the annex, visitors can see the cramped conditions in which the Franks lived, as well as Anne's original diary, which remains on display as a symbol of her enduring voice. The museum serves as a poignant reminder of the consequences of hatred and intolerance. It also functions as an educational center, promoting discussions on human rights, tolerance, and the fight against discrimination. Anne's story has inspired numerous adaptations in literature, theater, and film. The 1955 play The Diary of Anne Frank brought her story to Broadway and won the Pulitzer Prize for Drama. Several films have since been made, further cementing Anne's place in global consciousness. Each adaptation brings new perspectives to her story, ensuring that it reaches new generations who might otherwise be unfamiliar with the Holocaust. Beyond its literary and historical significance, Anne's story serves as a moral lesson for the modern world. Her reflections on human nature, prejudice, and the importance of hope continue to resonate. In a time when discrimination, intolerance, and persecution still exist, Anne's words remind us of the necessity of empathy and understanding. Her dream of becoming a writer was tragically cut short, but her words continue to inspire millions, proving that even in the face of oppression, the human spirit can shine through. Anne Frank's legacy is not just one of tragedy but of resilience and hope. Through her diary, she has given a voice to the voiceless, ensuring that history is never forgotten. More than 75 years after her death, Anne Frank's words remain as relevant as ever, urging humanity to strive for a world built on compassion, justice, and peace.